Hey, this is Chris Higdon from the band Elliott in Louisville, Kentucky, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with a brand new episode. And I have a special guest co-host with me today, returning guest, Nathan Gray of Nathan
Hi.
Gray and the Iron Roses. Nathan, say hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great. It's wonderful to have you here. Nathan, it's been so long since we have spoken. I think you were on the show March of last year.
Yes.
That's crazy,
Cool.
right?
Wow. It's been forever.
Yeah, that feels like, I feel like 4 lifetimes have happened in that short amount of time.
Honestly, with the way things have been going, it basically is
Yeah.
4 lifetimes. Yes.
Did you ever imagine at that time last year that we would both end up on the same record label?
I had no idea such a thing would happen.
Me either. It's a very
Yeah.
pleasant surprise.
It is very nice. It's one of the pleasant surprises that happened in the past 2 years.
Absolutely. We are excited to bring you a very, very awesome interview today. I've spoken to Joey Chiaramonte of Koyo, and you are absolutely going to love it. Koyo is a quickly rising, awesome emo post-hardcore band. If you haven't heard them yet, I really recommend you do so. We cover it all. We cover the history of Koyo. We cover the band's recent tour with Knocked Loose. We cover what's coming up with the band, and you're going to absolutely love it. But before we get to that, let me get some business out of the way. Here's how you can support The New Scene. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. Follow us on YouTube. We've got 3 channels now. We've got a main channel with full episodes of the podcast. We've got a clips channel with highlights from our favorite episodes. And we have a brand new gaming channel, which has highlights from my Twitch streams. So give those a follow. And folks, I have some very, very exciting news. We have a brand new Scene storefront over at Death Wish Inc. We've got t-shirts. You have been asking for t-shirts, and I have finally delivered. We've got a t-shirt version of the Life is Music is Life long sleeve shirt. We have logo tees in various different colors just in time for summer. If you want to support the show, buying a t-shirt is a great way to do it. Those funds directly support this show and the costs associated with operating the show. So go check them out. They're great shirts. You want one, you need one. If you like what you hear, if you like the show, if you haven't given us a rating yet, open up your Apple Podcast or Spotify application, hit that 5-star button. It'll really help us out in the long run. So thank you so much to everybody who has submitted a review. And if you write a nice review on Apple Podcasts, I'll read it on the air. And don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. We've got big news, folks. The Stretch Armstrong Rituals of Life LP repress is now available for pre-order over at Iodine Recordings. I consider this record a classic, and I hope that you do too. It's awesome. It's an awesome band. I'm happy to be label mates with them now. Nathan, I'm sure you are too, right? It's Stretch Armstrong.
Oh, without a doubt. Brilliant, brilliant album.
I love it. It holds up. And that Cure cover at the end, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Can't beat that.
Impossible to beat that. So pre-orders are up. Secure your copy today. All right, so let's talk music recommendations. Now, of course, I'm going to recommend Koyo because they're awesome and they're on the show this week. If you haven't heard their latest single, Straight North, you have to. It's an awesome, awesome song that I keep going back to. Great post-hardcore /emo/ with a tinge of heaviness. Check it out. You're going to love it. And, you know, in this conversation with Joey from Koyo, we talk about Blink-182 at one part in the discussion and our mutual love of the band. And that got me thinking, wait a second. There's a Blink-182 album I have not heard yet, a Mark and Tom album from back in the day called Neighborhoods. It's the last album they did together before Mark left the band. So I threw that on and I got really hooked by the song After Midnight. It's great. I listened to it like 5 or 6 times in a row over the course of last weekend. Amazing song. Check it out. I'll put that on our Spotify 2022 playlist along with Koyo. Go check it out. How about you, Nathan? What have you been listening to lately?
Oh my goodness. I listen to a lot of things. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that I've listened to is sort of old at this point, like The Clash and Otis Redding and things, But if I were to pick anything that's happening right now, it would probably be, I listened to that band Catbite from Philly.
Yes.
They're a ska punk band and they're brilliant. Absolutely awesome and great people. We actually did a record release show and they played with us in Philly on that. Another artist that I've been listening to a lot is actually a hip hop artist from originally from Tampa, but she lives in Atlanta now, called Zalarina. And that's sort of my listening experience right now. A lot of hip hop, some ska and reggae stuff. And a lot of the punk stuff that I'm listening to, hardcore stuff, is sort of dated to say the least, so that's sort of it at this moment.
Well, your taste seems to be pretty eclectic, and I like that because I can get hung up on one thing, but you're all over the map, and I think that's a great thing.
It's everywhere. Ska, reggae, hip hop, punk, hardcore, metal, pretty much everything.
Yeah, and I always say this on the show, but having such eclectic taste and all of these different influences to pull from, it probably really helps you with the creation of your music, yes?
Oh, without a doubt. It keeps you from getting stuck, because I think a lot of times I mean, even dating back with like Boy Sets Fire, when I was doing that stuff, it's very important to not just keep rehashing the same thing. And so now with Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, it's very important for me, once again, every album, every song, everything I do, to keep pushing the envelope a little bit and keep doing new things and different things and not get myself stuck.
Yeah, that's the way to go. I have found in the past that I just kind of keep rewriting the same song over and over. So with my latest project, I'm really trying to take more input from others and pull from different areas.
That's a great idea. I mean, that's actually what I do now. I mean, besides pulling from different areas, whether it's like, older punk stuff like Buzzcocks or The Clash, things like that have always been an inspiration to me. Then going to newer like ska punk bands, like Catbite or reggae bands and things like that, hip hop artists that influence me. Because everything I'm going to do is always going to be, punk adjacent, but it's gonna need different tinges, different inspirations. And not only that, but also not allowing that this is Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses to take over the Iron Roses. You know what I mean? My name not being, okay, we're just going to do things like this, So I always make sure that the people who I play music with have sort of a say and a function in what we do, and can be like, hey, we should really play it this way or try it this way with this style or this influence, and that really helps out a lot.
That's the way to go. And you just reminded me, Nathan, another recommendation, Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, Rebel Songs. That song is so catchy. I was listening to it earlier today, and I was singing the chorus right before I signed on with you. And I was like, I have to stop, because if I'm singing Nathan's song as I join the session, it's going to be embarrassing for me and for him.
Oh, no, that's okay. I love to hear that, because that is honestly, that's always been my thing, is the hook of a song. I love that stuff. Like, I don't play prog rock, you know what I mean? Like, I play pretty simple songs, and it is always sort of I guess like a thing of mine to see how catchy I can get it. I sit down, like the verse, the chorus, the bridge, whatever else, what have you. Even if I try to create a song that maybe isn't a standard like setup, you know what I mean? To still find where that hook is that's going to grab people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm big on song structure and being able to identify parts of the song and a catchy part. I want that. I need that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to add that song to our New Scene 2022 Spotify playlist as well. You can always check that playlist to hear all or most of the music that we talk about, as long as it's on Spotify. So go check that out and check back in with us at segment 3. You'll hear about how we are doing. You'll hear what's coming up with Nathan. But right now, we are going to speak to Joey Chiaramonte of Koyo. Enjoy. We're here now with Joey Chiaramonte. Joey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Psyched to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you here, Joey. You know, folks, you don't know this, but Joey and I have been working on getting him on the show and recording for weeks now. Joey was kind enough to talk to us live from tour. Now, Joey, I'm surprised that you can be in a van and do a podcast and then go in and, sound check and play a show a couple hours later.
Yeah, well, we took an honest crack at it, but there's, the honest truth is I can be in a van and I can do a podcast, but with the equipment that I was working with, which was AirPods, my laptop, and my phone's mobile hotspot, that's basically how we got to where we are now, where it just didn't work.
We tried our best, though. We got a good 15 minutes in, but then it just wasn't working.
Yeah, it was an honest fight. I was running around the venue because I had found we can get into this in a little bit if you want, or
yeah, because I want to start off by talking about the amazing tour you just got off of with Knocked Loose, Movements, and Kubla Khan.
It was amazing indeed, but that particular night of it, ironically enough, is like both the funniest and kind of universally looked at as like worst night of tour. So like it's funny, like I didn't even know if they had venue Wi-Fi, and I finally got tapped onto it, and we were trying to still make the podcast work. I was running around all over the venue trying to connect and figure out where I could connect from, but it didn't work out. But so it's just funny that like that ended up being like, again, no night of tour was bad at like in a legitimate sense, like in every way the tour is amazing, but that was like every band agreed that was like the fucked up one. The show was awesome, but logistically everything around it was like cartoonish and like hilarious. But I'm happy to start on any other tip if you'd prefer, but there's a lot of funny stories from that night in particular. It's just funny that we also had our own set of funny stuff that day too.
What is some of the stuff that happened? Pull back the curtain and reveal some of the logistical challenges.
So we knew that it was going to be a weird night when, I mean, mind you, just a little preface. This is Knocked Loose's, a tear in the fabric of life headlining tour. It's the biggest headlining tour they've ever done. All the venues scaled in capacity from about like 1,000 to 3,000 cap. Every show sold out. So it's a pretty legit tour. It wasn't, it wasn't rinky dink venues. It was like pretty upscale. Tucson, Arizona. I can't even remember the name of the place, but whatever venue we were at, we knew things were a little weird from the start. When we go in, like you get there early, usually suss out where the green room is, drop your bag, kind of get settled. I did exactly that, and pretty much everyone on the tour did exactly that. We got in there, and we walk into this back room, and inside is beautifully furnished. It looks like any other green room at any other venue. It has mini fridges, microwaves, couches, like central air, super clean. We were like, oh wow, this is super nice. But weirdly enough, entirely Van Halen themed. And then someone from the venue ended up yelling at people from the tour package for going in there, because that room, which would make, at face value, you would assume this is the green room, and it would make a lot of sense that it would be, is used specifically for like classic rock tribute nights, where you could pay for like a VIP ticket where you get to go into this back lounge green room, or what you'd figure would be a green room area that's Van Halen themed. And apparently like dancers will be in there and girls will serve you drinks topless with bottle service. It's like the 80s rock dream room, apparently.
Now, was this option available to you and the other bands if you wanted it?
It was not. It's only for, I assume, either Zebra playing there or a Zebra tribute night, something to that effect. And that kind of set the tone for the night, because the guy who either runs the place or like, I don't know what his position is there, he gave a pretty genuine attitude to the entire package for getting settled in there. And what we proceeded to find out was that the place is falling apart at the seams, pretty much. Like, this is grim. Like, I'm only laughing because it's just a testament to how insane this night was. Like halfway through the show, we found out that the lighting guy was like shooting up in the van that he lives in outside of the venue.
Oh, that's so rock and roll. I love it.
Dude, like the sound guy was literally outside during like the band sets, and like that's like normal at like a hardcore show or something, but like this is a like legitimate production, and like there were like sound issues going on stage. We play our set, literally every single mic fell off our drummer Sal's drum kit, like one by one as the set goes on, which is like just hilarious because like no one like ran up there and fixed it. So it's just like this, like, you know, get 30 seconds further into a song, another mic pops off. Like there's feedback left and right everywhere. There's fog machines going the entire time, which is like, you know, kind of funny. And I didn't even realize this, but it was 420. I didn't even think about this. And I don't even smoke, but like I remember on stage, I was like just being funny because I realized the set was awesome. Like our reaction was great and the crowd was awesome, but like I realized that the show was kind of taking a turn for like a funny and weird. So like kind of playing along to that on stage, I was like, yo, more fog, smoke this motherfucker out. And I swear to God, I don't know if there's a setting for it or like the doped out guy literally just like left his thumb on the button for the next 15 minutes, but fog did not stop for the rest of the set. So the entire room was a smoky haze by the time we were done because the fog machines literally were using all of the juice that was in there. There was not a point where it stopped. I swear to God, every second we continued playing, fog was coming out of one of these fog machines. And
This sounds amazing.
Dude, it was crazy. And our drummer Sal inhaled a fuck ton of it, got off stage, and immediately puked his fucking brains out in the parking lot. It was turmoil. It was so our guitar player Harold, he has like a strobe sensitivity. Like he doesn't have an official diagnosis, but we'll summarize it as like a epileptic-esque situation. So he can't do strobe lights. And I mean, the lighting guy was on heroin, so, you know, it doesn't matter that we told him because he's not going to remember. But
yeah,
2 or 3 times during the set, he starts strobing, and we go, no strobes on stage while we're playing. And during the last song, we say no strobes, and he just accidentally blacks out the entire room. So we're playing in pitch black for like 30 seconds. And that's pretty much it for our set. And then a couple of cliff notes as the night went on. Kublai Khan, the security guards there weren't a lot of security guards in there. The 2 like security guards that they had up at the barricade. This is a sold out, you know, 1,400 cap room. The 2 security guards they have at the barricade are like turned around watching Kublai Khan, like looking at them. So kids are coming over the barricade and like getting fucked up because they're landing on the ground. And then that only got worse during movements. Like they ended up being okay, but I'm pretty sure one person like passed out from the heat as they were like crowd surfing and then got dropped on their head because there weren't enough guards and the guards weren't like doing what they were supposed to do anyways for something like that. It was just like a mess of a show. And it was, you know, like all this is unfolding and we're outside talking about it because we're like, yo, this is just fucked. And like, it's like so clearly like not going to get better. Like it's only getting worse. Like the venue staff is crazy and checked out and this and that. And then, you know, you have people coming out of the venue in like, you know, like you hear like a scream and crying and you like see like one person who works there and really like members of the tour package like walking someone out after they got dropped by security. It's like it's just absolute chaos.
They didn't sound like they were ready for this at all. I mean, this tour package it's a major package, and Knocked Loose is just nuts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was not ready for what this is at all in any sense, excluding capacity. And in general, like, can't stress enough, the tour was fucking amazing. It's no testament to, this is entirely like the venue's fault and the venue side of things, even down to like you can't predict that all these things are going to happen going into it, obviously. But like,
right.
It was just like such a wild night. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, like you cycle back to the fact that we were having all of our issues to begin with, even just recording the podcast. It's one of those days where kind of like everything goes wrong in all the right ways, you know, like.
Yeah. But I mean, everyone played and we pulled the show off, right?
Yeah. Oh, and every set was amazing. That was like that's why it's like more of like a funny thing than a negative thing. Like no one was really, I mean, like someone like the tour manager was mad and like members of like our production team as like a whole package were mad, but like no one was like that show sucked because like the crowd was awesome and everyone that was there for the show was awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's sometimes like that's the best feeling when all this stuff goes wrong and you can still pull it off. Like there's podcast episodes where I spend hours working through technical issues and then we finally nail the conversation and you're done. And it's like, yes, we did it.
Yeah, it's the same exact vibe. It was like we got through the whole night and everyone's like, wow, the show was awesome. The skeleton, like the frame of what facilitated it was, hilariously fucked. But
did anyone shoot up with the lighting guy?
Nah, no one was down. Play ball. And honestly,
this is rock and roll, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, apparently,
kids, if you're listening, I'm just kidding. Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. Bad. I abstained myself, but
Yeah, same here.
If you happen to live in Tucson, Arizona, and want to work at a classic rock themed venue and fuck with drugs, the option is there. It's all.
Yeah, that's where my mind goes. I'm a former drug taker, but so like in my mind, I'm like living in a van, doing lights for a venue and shooting up. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, if this was like 1984, you are in theory living the dream. On paper, you're living the fucking dream.
I love it. Wow. So the tour is done now. I mean, how do you feel? This is a major tour. You've done this tour with Knocked Loose and Movements and Kubla Khan. You've done a tour with Anxious. You've done a tour with Vane. I mean, my head would be spinning if I was you.
I mean, I am so appreciative for what really is like the last, I guess we're looking at what, like maybe like 9 months since we started being able to play shows. Like I'm very grateful in general. The Knock tour particularly was obviously like really like a dream tour. Like it literally, like for people who like aren't familiar with like, I guess like the ins and outs of like the like greater, calling it this is kind of corny, but like it's the best way to frame it. Like the culture of like touring at a hierarchical level. Support tours, when you're the first of four, can really fucking suck sometimes. And that doesn't mean that bands doing it don't appreciate it, because of course you appreciate it. But when you're the first of four or the first of five on like a big support tour, you're pretty much there in the hopes that the exposure will make your band a little bigger. You're probably getting paid less because literally like the fact that you're getting all this exposure is leveraged against what you get paid. You load in before you play, you load out right after you play. And on top of that, sometimes the vibe like is just bad. You don't get a green room. Everyone else gets a green room. You're last in the totem pole to shower. Maybe the headlining band is being a dick to you for one reason or another. These are all like common stories in the world of people that tour. It's like, oh, I did this tour with this band. We played to like, they made us play 30 minutes after door, blah, blah, blah. But I set all of that preface up to say that this tour was nothing like any of that. It was the dream like support tour. Like all the bands, we hit it off great with them. They were all great to us. Knocked treated us very fucking well. Their production treated us very fucking well. Everyone was friends. Everyone had a good fucking time. Like green rooms were shared. Rider food was shared. We played an hour after doors every day. Main dressing room showers were shared. Every single thing that sucks about doing a tour like that in the world of all that shit, we did not experience any of it. Like we were treated like fucking gold on this tour. And I will, every time I have a platform to speak about how like this tour and what it was for us, like I will make a point in saying that like Knocked Loose knows how to fucking take care of like not only like a band they're taking out, but like take care of their friends. They really held it down for us, for real.
I love to hear that because Knocked Loose is huge. They're like one of the leaders in the scene right now. So they could conceivably be dicks if they wanted to, but I'm so happy to hear that everyone was cool. And yeah, I just like when people are cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen weird stuff on tour where it's like the band won't talk to you, or sometimes the headliner won't even mention the opening bands on the tour. It's like weird, stupid, petty stuff. I don't like that.
No, I don't like it either. And I've experienced some of it tangentially because like before Koyo, I also like toured with bands, TMing and doing merch and stuff. So I've seen it firsthand. Like I'm not going to, bring anyone up or name any names because that's just silly. Like it's not stuff that keeps me up at night, but I've seen the other side of it. I've done support tours that fucking suck. So not really, they treated us right. And we made very good friends with Kubla Khan and Movements respectively. And all, everyone hung out basically every off day. Like, the vibes were just fucking up in every sense. Like I'm going to miss this tour forever because like, I think everyone universally agreed, like touring in general is awesome. There's a lot of incredible tours you will do in your lifetime. That was top tier. That's one of like the greats forever. Like I will look back on that tour, whether we're a band in a year or a band in 20, like that will always be like a green check mark, is like that one was incredible.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, this is the time to do it, and those are the memories that last forever. I did 2 tours with a friend's band when I was 20 and 21, and I still look very fondly back on those days, and I'm glad that I got to do it.
I'm glad for you, because it's a beautiful thing. I was on the phone with a friend of mine earlier, and we were talking about, he's someone I had toured with, when I was younger, and now works with the band. He manages Koyo, and like basically full context of the conversation, we were just talking about how crazy life is and how crazy it is that all of our friends and peers and other bands are all doing such cool shit, because we look back on tours we all did together for no money, solely for fun, like for no anything, like literally just for in the interest of like touring, and we look at where everyone's at now, and it's really cool shit to look back on, because at the end of the day, like everyone got the ball rolling on their lives by just saying yes. No one needed any convincing to do this tour or that tour, or like to take risks in their life. Like we all just kind of had this open door policy of like, yo, if so-and-so wants me to road dog for them, the answer is yes. If so-and-so wants to take this band, like my hardcore band, out on tour, the answer is yes. Like, it's like, that was like what started all of our lives, is like, I look at all my friends and all of our bands, and like, we're just a whole world of people that were down to just say yes and just do it. And I'm grateful that we did, because I look back on all those times and everything that led us up to where we're at now, like really, really fondly.
I love that. Yeah, that's the thing. You do this stuff because you love it, and that's what everybody's doing, and it's just an organic thing that you do. You build these relationships, you get better at your craft, and eventually we get to where we are right now.
100%. It's organic is the key word, because I think some people, not that this is necessarily the wrong thing, but sometimes people try and force these things and skip a couple tiers, and like I take a lot of pride in the fact that like literally everyone who I stand shoulder to shoulder with, all our contemporaries, again, all my friends, bands, and people that I associate myself with, everyone worked their way up from the ground up. Everyone spent years just doing it because they love it, doing it for fun, taking like insurmountable like financial L's, all because we just love doing what we do and love playing shows and hanging out and shit. It's cool.
You have to love it. If you just love it and you just want to do it, that's what keeps you doing it. Like when I've entered into band situations and I'm like, okay, we're going to get signed by X time, and then we're going to be touring by X time, and then we'll be here. That never works out.
No, very, very rarely does it. And I think friendship and organic like building blocks in like a band dynamic, really, you look at like most scenarios, and a lot of the time that's the type of stuff that gets over. It's just genuine, organic, homegrown stuff in the right company with the right intentions,
Yes. So it has to be exciting out playing gigs again now, especially since we weren't able to do that for a couple years. Talk about the formation of Koyo. When did it happen? How did it happen?
So Koyo started summer of 2019. We were all playing in various other bands at the time, / touring with other bands. Just to name a few, without assigning everyone's various roles in each, but like Typecast, Hangman, Adrenaline, Sea-Space Cowboy. I would road dog for Vane as well. We all kind of were in different hardcore bands prior, but we all started going to shows together. So we pretty much started Koyo on the foundation of like, we need a band that we can all do together when we're home, because we all started doing this together. We all made other friends, many of which were mutual, and all went on to tour separate from one another. But we all come home to the same town and the same neighborhood and hang out. And it's like weird that we all do the same things with like different people. So we decided we all need like a home-based band to play when we're home. And Koyo started on that. We started writing the first EP and stuff. Me and TJ started writing that fall, and that early summer, rather, 2019. And we played our first show January 2020 with no music out, and it was awesome. And we were poised to play our second show when me, Sal, Morazzo, and TJ all got back from a full US tour we were doing at the time with our other bands. It was Sanctions headlining tour, and then COVID happened.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
I was out with Typecast on that, and so was Morazzo. Sal was playing drums for Sea-Space Cowboy at the time. TJ was in Adrenaline, and we were all out on the same tour, and we're like, yo, we're going to get home. We literally dropped the first Koyo EP last week of that tour, right before everything shut down. And we were like, we're going to get home and play our second show. And the world shut down. And like everyone else, our tour got canned early. We all went home and cue like a couple months of kind of doing nothing, letting people sit with the EP and sit with how they felt about it. Some people got kind of attached to it during quarantine because the timing worked out well where there wasn't much to do. And it came out at a time where people still thought they could go to shows soon and that this would blow over super quick. So they're like listening to it obsessively, expecting to see Koyo in a month or something. And, we didn't play for a year and change. But that's also really like, it's part of the formation story because the agenda of the band totally changed from, this is like a for fun thing when we're home. And it is still for fun, obviously, but like we planned on playing once every 3 months, if not less. But we all kind of like saw eye to eye during like the peak quarantine era where we were like, like some people seem to like this. We love this. We love playing in a band together. If there's ever an opportunity where touring comes back, if this all, goes away, because at the time it felt like it never would. We were like, we will make good on it. We will tour. We will play out. Like, let's full send this for a second. Like, we're still young enough where we can throw some fucking caution to the wind and take a crack at it. And, that's pretty much the story of the early days with it.
I love that. So once you decide you're going to take it more seriously and really go for it, what do you do?
At the time, we were amidst writing kind of a hodgepodge of everything. We were writing Drives Out East at the time, which was like the EP that we put out on Triple B that kind of really got the ball rolling for us. But we were also writing, at the time, we thought we were writing for an LP. So songs like Straight North, which we just put out on Pure Noise, like that song was written in that same time period. It was written a little before Drives Out East. We were just like practicing and writing all the time. We were just like nose to the grindstone. Like none of us had jobs at the time. Like none of us had any real commitments otherwise. And also we were like a pretty COVID careful group. Like we were super reclusive, like didn't really see other people a lot. We were very much kind of like in the lab, just working on Koyo stuff the entire time. So all we did was nose to the grindstone, get ready to roll out Drives Out East, and then dropped it the following summer, recorded it, got it mixed, like did all the like final touches of both in terms of like marketing it, rolling it out, whatever, like made sure that at the time it was perceived internally as perfect. Cause hindsight, like you'll nitpick anything, like it'll be perfect to you at one point. And then, you'll look back at it and there'll be things you would have changed. But at the time we got it to a point of in our eyes, near perfection, dropped it. And then pretty much the rest came rolling right after, like in terms of like the Knock tour we got offered, another tour that's getting announced soon, working with our agent Brad, like all those things that I guess are a little more leveled up, if you would, like that all came following dropping Drives Out East rather. And, that was kind of like the big pivot for us, I'd say.
Yeah, that's interesting that everybody's like doing these separate things and moving in different directions, but you agreed that you were going to work on a project at home together. I love that because I think like, I wish that I could do this with my friends, but everybody's always so busy, but you guys made the time.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing is, like, we were given the time by, for better or worse, the situation with the pandemic, and that was that previous conversation I referenced before about like that I was having earlier about being down to say yes and like the early days of touring and stuff like that. Like, we also talked about how like time and place and circumstance like just make moments for various things in life, not just bands, but like all things in life. Like sometimes like you're just dealt certain circumstances, bad ones at that, and it produces positive things. And, obviously the pandemic was a terrible thing. And like, I'm not downplaying it by any means, but for us, like hindsight 2020, looking back at the last 2 years, like the pandemic gave us an opportunity to sit down when we were all like pretty well into our young adult life with other obligations. Those obligations became null and void, and we had a window to just hard focus in on just doing this.
Yeah, that's crazy if you think about it. It's almost fate. Like you were handed this time to work on this music, and now you're putting out this great music and you're on these incredible tours. Yeah,
no, straight up. It felt like a almost fated thing. And I appreciate that because, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. It's great.
Yeah, earlier today, I was listening to Straight North. That's the latest single from Koyo, and I absolutely love what you guys are doing. I can't wait to hear more. I just really love that melodic, emo-tinged, post-hardcore type sound. It's like right up my alley.
Thank you. And that's all of our respective. I mean, we all have varied taste and varied things, but like that's all of our bread and butter. Like this band started in an effort to, kind of pay homage to like all that stuff that on a similar tip that we liked growing up.
Yeah. What are some of yours? Give me some bands.
Some top like from that era, like so Silent Majority is like my like number one like Long Island hardcore band ever, and they're kind of like all the bands I'm gonna follow with favorite band, so I kind of have to put respect on it. But Silent Majority, Taking Back Sunday, Glassjaw, The Movie Life, Thursday, like all bands from that era that like I love and have kind of known my entire life. I mean, I loved like Taking Back Sunday, Brand New Glassjaw growing up. And like stuff like Thursday, like I liked like at face value. Same with like The Movie Life I got more into when I was a teenager. And like Thursday I ended up doing a tour with when I was rolling with Vane, and I got to see them play full collabs and War All the Time every night, like, or they did like each album each night. And that got me even more obsessed with it because that got me into like the deep cuts. Like I only knew the hits, and like now, I fucking swear by Thursday. I think they're one of the illest bands ever.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually on a tour with them in 2003. I was out with This Day Forward, and it was also Every Time I Die and Thursday, right when War All the Time came out. It was an amazing time.
That's awesome. That's a prime tour, and also obviously a sick fucking lineup too.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, that's like kind of like my bread and butter with it, and TJ's kind of the same deal. And I think everyone kind of likes that early 2000s like post-hardcore tip in all ways. Like we all love Newfound Glory too. Like that's another like universal, like the whole band likes that band type scenario. And there's obviously tons of other outside influences that work their way in, but those are like the universal, like if there's like a broad reference point for what we're going for, it's like post-hardcore of the early 2000s.
I love it. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah. And that's all, it's like for me, like all those bands were put on my radar after they more or less succeeded, like, cause I'm 25 and I got into like Taking Back Sunday when I was 12, but when I was 12, Taking Back Sunday was already post Louder Now, so it's like, for me, it's like, I got into all that in the, I guess, post blow up era. Like they had blown up, I never got to see any of them on smaller, more scaled down terms.
Yeah, in 2000 through like 2004, there was just insane. It was like blowing up in the mainstream. Like we thought Thursday was going to go mainstream. We thought Taking Back Sunday was going to go mainstream. And they did. I mean, they did to a degree, but it was just like, it was an explosive time for this music.
Yeah, it was crazy. You have like scenarios where bands like that were, making records that went gold and stuff, which, like that says a lot about where at least time and place in that era, like how explosive it was for those bands at that time. Because, all in all, like mainstream success or not, like that is music that is derived from like, it's rooted in the hardcore scene. It comes from a very underground place, and seeing what some of those bands did, whether they necessarily rep for underground music or not at this point is arbitrary because we're talking, 20 plus years ago, but like seeing where they went and how fast they did is pretty amazing to look at in retrospect,
100%. So how did you get turned on to this music, and what were some of your early show going experiences?
I was put on to the whole broader world of, alternative music via Harold, our guitar player, because his sister used to, basically all the bands we were just talking about, his sister went to those shows at that time. So like, I'd say like Taking Back Sunday puts out Tell All Your Friends, blows up, but they're still like blowing up, if you would. She's going to see them in 500 cap rooms. So she's like part of the wave that blew them up. Like those are the shows that she's going to, but she wasn't like a hardcore kid per se. But she's going to see like Taking Back Sunday. She's going to see Thursday. She's going to see Brand New. She's going to see Movie Life, etc., etc. And she has all these CDs. She passes them off to Harold. And Harold, when I met Harold my first day of middle school in 7th grade. And me and Spanos, our bass player, the two of us were very adamant about like, we were like very into classic rock. We wanted to start a band. We were like, got into like music, like kind of really off like Guitar Hero, because like him and I like both grew up we still play games a lot. Like we grew up like gaming together and got into music together, and Guitar Hero was like a pretty big thing at that time for both of those things because it kind of unified both of those ideas. And it made me start taking guitar lessons, made him start taking bass lessons. So we were very adamant about like, yo, we want to start a band. We need to find more people at school who like music. I met Harold because I saw him playing guitar in like a practice room at like our middle school. And he pretty much instantly was like, yo, classic rock is cool, but it's also pretty whack. Like, here's all the stuff that I like, and showed me like the aforementioned, basically all the bands we've been talking about. But he also showed me like kind of like the more like Warped Tour-y, like post-hardcore / metalcore stuff, like Chiodo's, Devil Wears Prada, kind of like the post-metalcore, if you would, of like the mid to late 2000s. So we were kind of into that too. You're like Devil Wears Prada, Day to Remember, Chiodo's, that whole mix. So I'd say like a hodgepodge of early 2000s emo, and that was kind of like our early formative stuff. And then come high school, as well as some like mixed, like more contemporary pop punk stuff, I'd say too. Like, I remember 7th grade, like loving For You're Strong and stuff like that. And then fast forward to about the turn of like high school, I'd say like 9th grade, we start, 8th grade actually. 8th grade, we like went to our first Warped Tour, which was 2010. And like, we're kind of like, we're not really going to proper shows yet, but we're going to like stuff you'd frame more as like, honestly, like concerts, if you would, like we're going to see my parents are taking us to the Paramount on Long Island to see Taking Back Sunday. Like I in 7th grade, actually, I remember my dad Harold and I's parents took us and a bunch of our friends to Jones Beach Amphitheater to see Blink-182's reunion tour, Weezer, Taking Back Sunday on a tour. And that was like, I think that might have been like the 3rd live music event I'd ever been to in my life.
That's a good tour. Was this original Blink?
Yes, it was. So that was their first tour back as like original Blink. And, they played a lot of dope shit. Like they played Not Now, which, that's like a B-side of theirs that, was on Greatest Hits that I think they didn't get to play before the band broke up really, and stuff like that. And then between all that, like we got together with our little high school, or rather our middle school band that we had a bunch of middle school bands that are all kind of the same band with like slightly different lineups. But we would play shows at our middle school and they'd be kind of funny mixed bills where it's like, you have us playing classic rock covers and like literally like one, like a quote unquote original, and that original would be like a weird metal, basically like a rip off metalcore song of a Chiodo song. And then you'd have like local bands covering basically like wannabe Pantera local band metal stuff. And then the weird part about our middle school is like, there were just a lot of hardcore kids that went to our high school. So like at our middle school, at these benefit shows, local hardcore bands would play, like at legitimate hardcore bands. And I didn't understand hardcore music as a subculture at that point, nor was I able to differentiate between what I was doing or what any of them were doing. So to me, it was just another band or two playing the local show. But that's also kind of a funny footnote looking back, is like, there was like hardcore bands playing and moshing, but that wasn't like my like eureka moment of like, oh, I'm going to start going to hardcore shows. It's like, oh, more local bands playing at our cafeteria in 7th grade, like.
Yeah. The first hardcore show I saw, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like, this is it for me. It took a little bit.
Yeah. I think because the setting was so mixed, I didn't even like understand what I was seeing. Like it could have been, you could call it anything to me. Like could have called it metal, could have called it hardcore. Like end of the day, it was just bands.
Yeah.
But that's kind of backtracking a little bit. I guess more like early high school, Harold and myself kind of had like our first crack at doing a band, and it was kind of like a shitty little metalcore band. And that's when I played like my first local shows, like, like sell 30 tickets for some scumbag and, open this show. And we did that for a little while. And then I'd say 10th. So that was like, we had like 1 year of going to like everything. Like 9th grade was like our 9th grade into the fall of 10th grade was our go to everything year. We're like, I'm just going to go to all shows of all kinds. So we're going to like pop punk shows on Long Island. We're going to metalcore shows on Long Island. We're going to like mosh metal, like fringe hardcore shows, like some like really funny mixed bills. And then, like very like post deathcore mosh metal shit, like very like byproducts of bands like On Broken Wings and Recon, but like not nearly as good as the actual thing at like a local band level. And then finally that like fall of 10th grade, we were like 15 turning 16, we started going to like more proper like Long Island shows, seeing like Incendiary and Backtrack and King Nine and stuff. And that was pretty much game over. I had no interest in seeing anything but that for the next couple of years. Like I stopped going to like the pop punk shows on Long Island, stopped going to the metalcore shows. I was pretty much like had my eureka moment, was like full send hardcore kid from there on out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm always interested in where people came in and kind of what influenced them and the bands that were around at the time, because I'm older than you, so it's just interesting for me to hear someone else's experience.
For sure. We were very much like the post Reaper Records era of kids, you know, like when we were like teenagers. So it was like, you know, your average shows were seeing like the aforementioned Incendiaries, King Nine, Suburban Scum, Rude Awakening, Backtrack. That whole era of bands was like very much what was playing on Long Island all the time. Like Fire and Ice, Naysayer, TUI was just breaking up, you know, stuff like that. Or, well, you know, taking their hiatus or whatnot. Turnstile was, you know, still up and coming, and TUI was switching off to give Turnstile and Angel Dust room to grow. Like that was kind of that was sophomore, junior, senior year of high school for me. It was like watching that era both grow / turnover, I'd say. The late 2008 to like 2010 hardcore era of bands, watching them grow, peak, and either break up or reach astronomical new heights, i.e. Incendiary and Backtrack, like, you know, totally ran it for Long Island and fucking killed it for quite a long time, which is awesome. Incendiary,
I love them. They to this day, whenever I listen to it, I just get so pumped.
Yeah, I mean, that dude, like Crusade, their first LP was like, I cite that as the record that got me into hardcore, I'd say. That was like that and this other local band at the time called Bottom Out were like my two, like, yo, I have to see this for like the real like, you know, on my like high school iPod, like constantly on repeat, like know every word, know every breakdown. Like I was like obsessed. And that's what actually finally got me out to a proper show. I remember like, it was also before I was driving too. So like there were a couple shows I wanted to go to that I missed that, like, if I can go in a time capsule, I'd love to have been at, like TUI, like Ethical, like fall 2012. I missed, it was like TUI and like in King Nine. That would have been dope.
How'd you get around? Because Long Island, you kind of need a car, right?
You do need a car, and my parents were down to drive places for me, but like, an example, like a lot of the shows were at that place I was just talking about in Garden City, and Garden City is like an hour and change from me. So like, you know, like there's again, I was kind of going to everything. So I just wanted to literally go to everything. And my parents would basically be like, yo, it's a Wednesday night. You want to go to a show, but I'm not driving you to Garden City. But it would create this rock and a hard place scenario, because they'd also be like, also, you can't go with your friends. Like they're too young to like, you know, like your friend driving. I don't feel comfortable with them. Like they're 17. They just got their license, blah, blah, blah. So like I had to do a little bit of sneaking around. I was never like the super rebellious kid. Like I would, but you know, I'd get off work and tell my parents I'm going to hang out at so-and-so's house and get a ride to a show in Sayville, which is maybe like 20 minutes from me. Like I was very reliant on like proximity, because that would either let me, if a show was close enough, my parents would take me. Like I'd say within 20 to 30 minutes, I could get a ride. If they could drive me to a train station, they would sometimes. Like that would also be a compromise. But a decent amount of the time, like until I was old enough to drive, ages 15 to 17, I was going to shows without being able to drive, we'll say. So like for about 2 years, I was reliant on like kind of both asking favors and fibbing here and there, and basically just being like, hey, like, you know, I got work, you know, I'd leave the house in my work uniform and, you know, get dropped off wherever and, you know, get picked up at said job and go to the show that same night. And, or even I get dropped off at shows by my parents and tell them that like so-and-so's mom and dad picked me up. It would just be somebody else, like a friend would drive me home. So
yeah, I would lie, and we would drive down to West Philly to almost get killed at some show in an abandoned house. It was great. I loved it.
Exactly. That was the spirit of it all. And, you know, like, I feel like in general, I'm just part of this, like, I'm part of like the last ones out, like going into this modern age, like the iPhone era we're in. Like I lived everything. I lived households with no kids having cell phones, into like call the house phone era, like the old way, into like people getting their first cell phones, into people getting their first smartphones, into people getting their first iPhones. Like, I'm like the perfect age where I literally watched both like technology turn over and society turn over in a lot of ways. So like by the time I was a teenager, like it was a little harder to lie to my parents just because like end of the day, like, you know, like if they really wanted to, like my parents could have been like, there was no FaceTime yet, but like my parents could have been like, oh, like so-and-so's mom's driving you home, call her. Like, you know, like put her on the phone, you know, and like thankfully they never really called my bluff like that, excluding a couple of minute scenarios I can't remember the exact details of. But, you know, like it was a slightly harder time to lie to my parents, but not hard enough that I didn't, you know. And also like my parents are dope and have always been super supportive, so I didn't have to lie that much. But, you know, I dabbled, did what I had to do to go to shows, you know.
I mean, at least we weren't like running around getting fucked up and selling drugs, right? My sneaking around was going to hardcore shows.
Bingo, exactly, same boat. It's like I'm getting a ride from my friend who you don't like is, you know, my age and driving, or maybe a little older and driving. You're like, oh, they don't have like driving experience, whatever. But like, end of the day, we're both sober, and the worst thing we're doing is getting fast food till like 1 a.m. after the show, and I'm getting dropped off. You know, my friends and I were pretty rambunctious in high school in the sense of like, we liked doing like, you know, very entry level vandalism. We like doing like funny shit, like driving into people's trash cans with our cars and stuff. Like, but like we were a generally like sober, you know, not getting into trouble group of kids. Like we just we're pretty tame in the grand scheme of things, you know?
I don't know why that's so funny. Just driving into people's trash cans.
Oh, we loved it. Straight up, you'd get in your car, you'd like slam on the gas, drive up to about 40 miles an hour, and just truck through someone's trash can on garbage night and watch it all go flying. It was classic.
We used to terrorize various neighborhoods with paintball guns. We all purchased paintball guns, and there was this one random guy in an apartment building we saw watching TV, and we would drive by an egg and shoot his house for like years.
Dude, that's awesome.
Like literal years. And then there was like someone would be like, oh, I don't like this guy. So we'd go and like paintball his house or something. We were kind of terrorizing that neighborhood now that I think about it.
See, we do things kind of like that, except like the problem, or I don't even want to call it the problem, but like, the funny thing is like our sense of humor was like not, oh, let's go vandalize the person we don't like's house. It's, yo, it'd be so funny if we did X to this person because it'd be like random as fuck. Like we have no reason to be doing that to so and so. It's like so like ridiculous. We don't even like know that person like really at all. So it's funny if we do insert vandalism here, you know. But like all in all, we were like pretty tame. Like we were very much like you know, we didn't get into too much trouble in high school, you know, like we were just like we were very much like the it could be way worse group. Like clearly I think people knew us as like a more weird or alt squad of like teenagers at like my greater friend group, but like I don't think we were like, no one perceived us as like the bad kids, you know, because we really weren't. Like we were just kind of like doing our own thing.
Yeah, no, same here. And I became more of a bad kid later, but, you know, I got over that, so it's all good.
Exactly. That's all I could ask for, you know? Getting over the bad kid era. Everyone's entitled to it, though.
Yeah, it's just part of growing up.
Straight up.
So Koyo is playing Furnace Fest this year, yes?
Yes, we are.
Now, that is exciting. Have you been down there yet?
I have not, unfortunately, but funny enough, so part of our, like, origin story with touring and all that is that our first tour we did with Soulblind, about a 2-week run, was being routed around playing a Furnace Fest after show that did not happen. At first, we were told we'd have a shot at potentially getting on one of the days of the fest, and then that got downgraded to an after show, and then that got downgraded to a kid from the area who has nothing to do with the fest will do like an unofficial after show, and then eventually the whole thing got canned. But the dude who runs Furnace Fest, who's, you know, no disrespect, I just don't remember his name off the top of my head because I wasn't.
I think it's Chad.
Might have been. I wasn't the one talking to him at the time. Whoever James, who works with us, was talking to at the time about all of this was like, yo, like, just know I got them next year. I'll hold it down for them. And he was thankfully very true to his word and very appreciative to be on the fucking fest because, like, you know, that's fucking amazing. But also, like, in a weird way, like, it's cool that things worked out the way they did because the tour that we did that was routed originally around playing Furnace Fest, like, which didn't happen, obviously. Like, again, we were kind of trying to force it, for lack of a better way to put it. We were like, yo, like, we heard we might be able to do this. So we booked an entire tour around it, and then it didn't work out. And instead of canning the tour, we were like, let's just go tour. Cause like we haven't been able to do it in so fucking long. It'd be stupid to cancel. Like the world's opening up. Like let's fucking play. And the tour that we did ended up being amazing. It was fucking awesome. I love Soulblind. I love everyone in that band, and the shows we played with them are so great. And you know, now here we are a year later, and we're slated to actually play the proper fest on a dope day with Story So Far. And I'm really fucking excited about it, and just like extremely fucking grateful to be included in the fest, because I mean, look at it, you know, like Sunny Day Real Estate's fucking playing, you know, like it's crazy.
Yeah, my friend was reading, like, I'm going. This happens. I went last year. I went back in the day when it happened one year. I went last year, and I'm going again this year. My friend was reading off the whole lineup, and it still doesn't sound real.
Yeah, it's literally, yo, it is so crazy. It like borders on like fan fiction. It's incredible. And for that, and also like, yo, like that, so much of like what that fest is in a lot of ways is like kind of what our band's identity is too, where like, we very much are influenced by like what made up the fucking story of the past, but we're also trying to push the dial forward and do our own thing. So to be shoulder to shoulder with contemporary bands that we think are dope, as well as like bands that fucking inspired us, it's like, it's the dream fest. I can't think of a better scenario for us in terms of like attending a fest, let alone playing it. You know, it's an absolute honor.
You're spot on there, because it's everybody and everything. Older bands, newer bands, just everything.
Yeah, it literally everything in between as well. Like it's such a cool fucking space for it. And we have a tour at that time that I can't talk about. It's slated to be announced like at the end of this month. But with that accounted for, like the tour is routing us to Furnace Fest, and my only hope is that I don't think we'll be able to go for the whole weekend. But I hope we play Sunday. I hope we get there in time Saturday. Like, I hope Saturday is like an off day or something, so we can just go. I want to see Sunny Day so fucking bad.
Have you seen them before?
No, never. And I love that band. Like that band is like, goated. So I really, really, really hope we can be there Saturday.
Yeah, that's the set I'm looking most forward to seeing, because I did see Sunny Day Real Estate on their 2008 run. But I used to be a real mess, and I was so fucked up at the show, I don't remember even 1 second of it.
Dude, that obviously like sucks as like a memory. It's like, oh, it's like a bummer that you don't remember, but also like I kind of feel like the context that they're coming back in right now is like special and the right time, and like seems very like a good vibe and not tumultuous at all. So like I think the new memory of seeing it will trounce whatever the old was. I would like to think
100%. And I saw Jeremy Enyik perform solo at last year's Furnace Fest, and I cried, actual tears.
No, I don't blame you. Unbelievable music, like undeniable.
Yeah. I can't wait. And I can't wait to see Koyo, because I haven't seen you guys yet.
I can't wait as well. I really like, I'm psyched for you to see us. And honestly, I'm just psyched to see what that fest holds for us, because, you know, we've done FYA, we've done LDB, we're doing Sound and Fury this summer. And those are very much like, you know, newer fests with newer bands, and to be in kind of the mixed bag, both in terms of company and even demographic wise, that like Furnace Fest is going to be. I'm curious to see what our crowd is going to be like. You know, like it will be a lot of younger people, will be a mixed bag. Either way, I'm psyched to be doing it at all.
Well, the good news is every stage I was at, there was a lot of people. So
seemed like it. Yo, like all the videos and pictures I saw, like it seemed like there were no bad sets. There were no duds. It just seemed flooded the entire time.
Yeah, I can't wait to go again. So Koyo has a tour coming up, but we can't announce that yet. What about new music? What's coming up?
So what I can say is we have another song called Call It Off that's coming out in June. We haven't picked the day yet, but we're slated to put out in June. Like I wouldn't be shocked if it came out in July instead. But it's done. We recorded it in the same sessions we did 10 Digits and Straight North. It's a little, I don't want to like mislead people. It's a more stripped down like acoustic type song, but it's not just my voice and a guitar for like the entire thing. Like, not that wouldn't be like a valid thing to put out per se, but like it's like just a more stripped down version of the band intentionally. We wanted to kind of do a softer track, so that's coming out in June or July, and then we go and we start. I mean, not even start. We're recording our debut LP for Pure Noise Records this July into August. So we're doing a month with the same guy, John Markson, who we did those singles with. We're doing the LP with him, and hopefully trying to get that out, not this year, but the following like spring, like March, April is our target, hopefully.
I can't wait for that. How far are we?
Hard to put a metric on it because like we have a lot of demos, a lot of like Logic demos. We have like 4-ish songs that we're like really psyched on that we could put out tomorrow and like would be like good to go. And then we have like 15 plus song ideas of like skeletons and like, you know, stuff that needs to be developed in pre-pro. So I think we have a lot on the table to pluck from and a lot of new ideas coming like by the day because we're like actively trying to write for it now. But we're not at a clean slate for it. Like we definitely have a lot of ideas and a lot of progress, but like we're not 75% done either. There's still a lot of finalizing to do before going in there.
Right. Plus, you get into the studio, you work with a producer, new ideas pop up in the studio. There's a whole process to this thing.
Exactly. And we're trying to keep a pretty open mind about that because we know we have a week of, we're going to go in there and basically just demo out the record and focus in on the songwriting and really like pluck it all out in the process. So like we might come in there with a song that we think is finished and it might be far from by the time like we get done with pre-pro. It might end up a totally different track by the time we're done. But I'm excited for it because I just, that's something I really, prior to doing those singles, hadn't gotten to do in my life. Recording had always been a very like fragmented effort, and like just getting to do like a week with John and like work out those singles was like a special thing. And I can only imagine how cool it's going to be focusing in for a month on this LP because, you know, it's dream shit. It's stuff I never thought I'd get to do in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to hear more. And I think this is an overall exciting time for music as well. There's a lot of new, interesting stuff out there. I love what Koyo is doing. I love what Anxious is doing. I love what One Step Closer is doing. There's all these new, exciting bands doing new, exciting things. It's a great time for music.
Agreed. And yo, like that's what's cool about it. Like being psyched on your peers and psyched on what everyone around you is doing only wants to make you make better music. You know, like it like it's inspiring. It like looking to our right and to our left and seeing bands like Anxious, an example, as you mentioned, killing it, or, you know, bands we've otherwise toured with, whether it be your Soulblinds, your Veins, your Fleshwaters, like seeing friends do more and more inspiring, dope shit makes you want to do the best version of what you do in every way.
Yeah, it seems like that's happening for you like it did when I came up in the scene. Like when I came up, Poison the Well was breaking and there was the whole melodic metalcore thing was happening. Thursday exploded onto the scene. There was just like endless exciting things happening.
For sure. And that's obviously a very fucking dope, inspiring period. And, you know, I'm trying to not get too lost in the sauce in the sense of like, you know, like sometimes like if you don't look around and see what's happening, you risk missing it, you know? Like I'm trying to like be psyched on every minute and every show and every opportunity we get to play, every opportunity I get to see music, see friends bands play, like don't want to risk a second of feeling even like the slightest bit like too nose to the grindstone, too forward thinking, just, you know, gotta finish this, gotta do that, gotta get to this tour. Like I'm really trying to like stop and smell the fucking roses because it's such a cool and special time for music in every way right now.
Yeah, you have to. You said you're only what, 25?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't start getting tired of shit till this year, and I'm 40 now.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm trying to hold off on getting tired on anything as long as possible, and that includes touring and that includes playing shows. Like I refuse to have bad days. I just won't let it into my life. I'm trying to enjoy every second of life.
I love that. That's good. That sounds healthy. How do you stay centered? What do you do? Do you struggle? Do you have to work through things? Like me, I have all kinds of crazy anxiety and things that I need to work through, but I've got practices and people to talk to and all kinds of things. What about you?
I think in general, I mean, I'm a fairly you know, I'm as unstable as the next guy, if you would. Like I think I really go through sweeping waves of feeling pretty fucked. I struggle a lot with seasonal depression. Like,
yeah,
I think most people from the Northeast do, frankly, but like literally the seasons change and I'm dirt. I'm fucking absolute like mental trash. And I think the centering thing for me is just having like a good fucking, I mean, like I'll go in and out of therapy as I need it in life, or, you know, cause in general, it's a healthy thing. Like I have a great therapist who I, you know, reach out to when I need it, and I'll get on a I'll get on a wave with her for a little while and work through harder times or harder scenarios in my life. And, in moments where things are more stable, like right now, frankly, I feel great. I'm in a really good place in general. And I'm centered in large just by, having good fucking friends and supportive family in my life, and really, taking advantage of the fact that those people are there and around me. Like, I try and spend meaningful time with my friends. I try and spend meaningful time with my family. I try and spend meaningful time doing nothing. That's on it. Like, doing less in a lot of ways is a therapeutic thing. Like, sitting at my fucking computer and fucking off and like playing an MMORPG for a couple of hours, as I, more or less like killing a Tuesday night, like objectively doing nothing, like objectively wasting time. Like, sometimes that shit's really fucking therapeutic. And I think it helps center my life a lot, especially as things get harder and more stressful, and, things that come with age and time and all things life.
Yeah, no, big time. I make time for everything. The podcast takes up a ton of time, and I've got a 9 to 5 job, but I've got designated days for gaming and various other things. What MMORPG are you playing?
Right. So I've really played the whole lottery of it all. Like, I'm an MMO head through and through. I've been playing them since I was very, very young, but currently I'm back on Classic WoW, playing through Burning Crusade, revisiting my childhood. But I was big into Final Fantasy 14 during the quarantine. I capped on Elder Scrolls Online, played a little retail WoW. I played New World before it flopped. Like, any opportunity I have to like zone in on an MMO, I will. And I'm a casual. I have no accolades. I never rated too hardcore. I'm a scrub next to many of my friends and many of my peers, but
Me too. I never got to be part of a big raid. I would like to do that one day. I play EverQuest.
Oh, dope. I my first MMO ever was EverQuest 2, which is kind of like what could have been, because WoW came out the same month that EverQuest came out.
Yeah, once World of Warcraft came out, EverQuest was done.
Yeah, but EverQuest is like the blueprint for like what made the modern MMO. It's an incredible game, and I've always hoped that a spiritual successor would come along that I could take a crack at, and like, that's kind of founded on the same more hardcore and, non-player convenience friendly ethics of like EverQuest and the games of that era. I played Dark Age of Camelot a lot in middle school, and that game was, at that point even already kind of like on the downswing, just because it was getting old. But I had a great time playing it. I've really tried the lot of them all, and then ages like 14 to like 20, I'd say I was raiding a lot, mainly on WoW, like on and off through the years. But I never got too hardcore with it. I was mostly clearing normals and heroics, but me and all my friends were like WoW lifers, and I had a guild for a while, like all stuff I was kind of doing in between college and playing shows and stuff.
I love that. Yeah, I played from like 18 to 20, but then I discovered like girls and drugs and just trouble and all that stuff. But once I cycled back around and just started living a more serene life, I played EverQuest again for the first time in 20 years, and going back to the original spots where I leveled my character and seeing some of these places again for the first time in 20 years, it was like such an emotional experience. It was unbelievable.
No, I'm sure. And EverQuest especially, like, the beautiful thing about it is it still has a community. Like, it's one of the oldest MMOs still functioning, and like people are diehard with it. People are really lifers. I mean, people met their wives on that game and shit, like it was like such a cultural moment in the same way that WoW was as it followed. And I was more on the WoW tip just because it was a little more centered to the age that I picked it up. But
it was more forgiving too. Like EverQuest was just like, fuck you, I don't care. Like
WoW was way more forgiving by contrast.
If you died in EverQuest, you had to go all the way back to the zone and loot your corpse to get your stuff back. And there was hell levels where it would take like 4 times as long to get through the level. It was crazy what was going on.
Crazy corpse runs. They would really punish you for dying. Like WoW, honestly, the game, I mean, that's like a whole broader, newer issue, but the modern game's problem is that they kind of like gave too much convenience, and it kind of made the game play more like a solo RPG rather than like a online community. Like the thing about like MMOs in that era is like, you were forced to make friends. You were forced to talk to people because playing the game alone was just disadvantageous, if you would. Same goes for EverQuest, where like now if you wanted to, you could max a character on WoW and honestly probably raid without ever speaking to someone for any reason ever.
Yeah, I can never group on EverQuest anymore, so I just don't play. because it's boring to just sit there and root rot the same enemies over and over again. And by the way, folks, this is like serious nerd territory. I just dropped the term root rot, and if you know what that means, you're an OG.
Yeah, straight. We're deep in it right now as far as nerd fandom goes. But in a fucked up way, like MMOs and games like that were really like my first crack at like seeking out community and common interest of people. And then obviously later I would go on to do everything we've been talking about in my life. And I think the fundamental interest was the same in this idea of like, I want the people I already have in my life and like new people I haven't met. I want to link with all of them with a common goal or common idea or common interest in mind. And a virtual world facilitated that, you know, as funny as it is to say.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing, and I still do it. You know, I play Warzone every week. I'm on Twitch all day. I love it. It's fun.
It's cool. No, I'm in the same tip. Like it's just a healthy thing in life. It can be unhealthy too, but like a healthy palate cleanser to other things for me.
It's all about balance. You know, you've got the band, you've got MMORPGs, you've got friends. You just got to mix it up.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. I've had times where the balance is very off, but I think I have it all in a pretty good place right now.
That's good to hear. Yes. So let's recap, folks. Here's what we're going to do. Number one, if you somehow have not heard Koyo yet, I mean, what are you waiting for? Do it. Do it today. Do it tonight. Right, Joey?
Oh, yeah. It's as easy as opening up your preferred streaming app or YouTube. It's all right there.
Yeah, do it. And start with Straight North. That's the latest single. I love it. I listened to it again today. Highly recommended, but I mean, it's all recommended. And Koyo is going to be out on tour. We can't announce the tour yet, but it's happening, right?
Yes, we have a full US in September, which will be announced end of this month, and we have Europe in November, which will also be announced at the end of this month. So everything's coming. It's just, you know, can't violate those announced day protocols.
Exactly. And Koyo will be at Furnace Fest, so we have to see that, right?
Oh yes,
we have to.
That is a must if you're traveling. You know, I'm very excited for that, and I think because it's on the later half of the tour that we're doing, I think that will be a real like high point to look forward to. I mean, we give it our all in general, but like there are always those special moments and special pockets on tours where like the ante's a little higher, and that's an ante up show. That's a leave nothing undone on that fucking set. Like we're trying to really fucking run it for that.
Exactly. And folks, I mean, I've been going to shows for over 20 years and I haven't felt the things I feel at Furnace Fest. So come on, what more do you need?
Straight up. You know, we're very all in on Koyo right now just because it's a very time consuming thing. It's like literally our everything at the moment. And obviously we got that LP in the works, but if you're bored, people are always welcome to check out our, you know, prior projects and stuff that will always, you know, all these other bands still play shows and get love where we can figure it out. But I played in a band called Typecast, and we're slowly working on new stuff. Morazzo, TJ, and Sal play in a band called Reign of Salvation, straight edge hardcore band, and still play. And Harold plays in Hangman, who, you know, that's members of Pain of Truth and that whole squad. So, you know, those are always open doors to anyone who's interested in hearing it, because, you know, we'll always be around playing shows where we can with all those bands too. So I encourage those as pacifiers for those who might be just discovering Koyo and want a little more. You can always check out our other stuff. And I have a nifty little playlist on our Spotify page for Koyo that directs you to all that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Yeah, you got to see where it all started, folks. You have to.
For sure. Part of the deal, you know?
Well, Joey, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show tonight. You know, I'm looking forward to more from Koyo, and it was great to speak with you.
You as well. And obviously, thank you so much for having me, and just appreciate the time and the energy, for real.
There you have it, Joey Chiaramonte. Excellent conversation. I loved speaking with Joey. I loved the band. It was really funny hearing about that wild show experience in Arizona and just the insanity happening there. I'm happy that things are blowing up for the band. The great tours that they've been on with Knocked Loose and and everybody else. I'm really excited to see them at Furnace Fest, and I'm always very happy to speak to a fellow gamer. I mean, he's playing World of Warcraft. You know, I love that. I could talk about that all day. Great band, right, Nathan?
Yeah, great band. I think it's really cool. All the upcoming, like up and coming is what I meant, not upcoming, up and coming, like hardcore and punk bands that are coming into the scene now. I try to follow them as much as I can. There's so many at the moment, but great band. I love what they're doing, and I love supporting any new bands that are revitalizing the scene, basically.
Absolutely. There is a deluge of amazing bands in hardcore and metalcore and post-hardcore and emo, whatever you want to call it. Everything under this wonderful umbrella we're under. There's so much good stuff happening now, and I'm happy to be part of it in my own small way. So thank you again, Joey. Wonderful to have you on the show. So let's talk about how we're doing. I mean, why not? And Nathan, I want to start with you because people hear from me enough. I mean, lay it on us. This is Nathan's first time back to the show since episode 52. That was way back in March of 2021. If you haven't heard Nathan's interview on our show, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It's one of my favorites. But Nathan, lay it on us. What's going down?
Oh, well, let's see. In that amount of time, so much has happened. You know, as we're talking now about my new band, I've been, trying to put that together, do all the things. This whole thing started with me deciding to go solo and then doing a couple of albums solo and like almost acoustically to an extent. And then going, nope, I want a band, and getting back into that, So with that, done a few tours, done a lot of things, and just been sort of recreating what I do with this new band.
So how is it going transitioning to the new band? I mean, do you struggle at all? Do people get hung up on the past? Tell us about the process.
It is a struggle. It's difficult. I mean, I was in Boy Sets Fire for nearly 30 years, and it made a big impact, which I am absolutely, I think anybody in that band is sort of beside themselves that it made such an impact. You know what I mean? While at the same time, it does get rough sometimes when you're trying to do something new. You're doing what your heart is telling you to do, and not everybody is going to be like, cool, new thing. I think that a lot of people right now are very interested in nostalgia. And that's not really my thing. Like I was saying earlier, I like to keep moving. I like to keep doing new things. I like to keep so it's fine. I've put it on my own plate to try and prove myself in another realm. So, it's a struggle. And not only that, but like putting together a new band, anybody that's put together a band knows how hard it is, member lineup changes, all this different stuff, like between, and not only that, but I would say with what I do, it's almost more difficult because I put a lot of emphasis on the type of people that I have in this band. There is a very strict ideology to an extent and a way of being, whether that's just them as a person or on tour, because what I'm promoting as this band, there's a big push towards speaking on LGBTQ issues. There's it's very political. It's very, if you heard Boy Sets Fire, that's what I do,
Right.
But it's important to me to have people involved that are also as vocal and feel as strongly about these issues as I do. And they're not just there to be in a band.
Yeah. And from seeing everything on social media, it looks like there's a big focus on diversity, which is great because we always need that, because we're always going to slip back into stupid mindsets that isolate other people. Yeah. And it must be difficult because I couldn't hold a band together with zero standards. So if you're trying to put a band together and have everybody mentally on the right mindset and have it be diverse as well, it's got to be a struggle.
Well, and creating that diversity without falling into tokenism.
Right.
Because that can be just as bad. is when you're going, well, I'm going to make sure I have X number of this kind of person in my band. So you look into your pool of friends and those who are talented and those who you feel can do that job, but you do give sort of preferential treatment to those who you feel not only will uphold a certain standard in ideology, but also I want to make sure that the people on stage are reflecting the audience, because not only are we a politically and socially forward band, but also we speak on very deep personal topics related to politics. So if I'm up there and it's just a bunch of white dudes, straight dudes on stage, it's not going to hit the same way. What if there's someone in the audience that is touched by something that we are saying, but they don't see themselves reflected on that stage? They can't go to somebody in that band and say, "Hey, I feel safe talking to you because you reflect me." So that's a very important thing for this band.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
You make some great points. Diversity is something I strive for on this show as well, because let's be honest, in the scene and in general, I think it's just dominated by a lot of white people, white guys.
Yeah.
The bands and everything else.
Straight white dudes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try as hard as I can to be inclusive and mix it up a bit. And
that's sort of our mission as well. And I think the mission of any of us in this scene should be to highlight bands and to highlight artists who don't fit that mold. You know what I mean? Bringing in more queer artists, bringing in more artists of color, bringing in more women, calling attention to that. And I think that's also something that we try to do as a band when we bring an opening band with us, or we're promoting other bands, that we make sure that we are promoting other bands that maybe people don't normally see in the hardcore scene or in the punk scene, So, I just feel like that's very important. It's important to me. It doesn't have to be important to anyone else. I like to keep that mindset to where, so I don't end up lecturing people. You know what I mean? Where it's like, start your own band, do whatever you like. But for me, I feel this is important, so I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and that's the way to go. Earlier you were talking about transitioning from Boy Sets Fire to Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, and how you don't like to be stuck in the past, and neither do I. That's something I put a focus on this show. Is I don't want to just talk about the past. I don't want to just talk about 20 or 30 years ago or whatever. I want to know what people are doing now. I want to know what they're up to now. I have a focus on now and the future, and that's kind of how I live my life too. Now, don't get me wrong. I love nostalgia, but I love nostalgia in terms of like old movies and video games and looking at a commercial I saw when I was a kid and that kind of stuff. So, when it comes to this, I'm focused on the now, and it sounds like you are too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what have you got coming up? How can we see you? Where can we hear you? What's going down?
The best places to check us out is on Instagram. Honestly, I have a Twitter account, but dear God, like it is so hard being on Twitter. And honestly, with Facebook, Instagram's my jam. All right. I love Instagram. So I just put all my posts on Instagram and they go out to the other social media platforms, So wherever you go, you're going to get the same thing. So if you look up Nathan Gray music or Nathan Gray and the Iron Roses, you're bound to stumble upon my Instagram. But past that, there's so much coming up. We're in the middle of writing a new album. I'm hoping to get into the studio by the beginning of next year. And while we're writing, the rest of this year is just total chaos. It's in a good way. I have an upcoming tour, Euro tour that's on sale right now. That is in November. We have a US tour coming in October, which is going to be on sale this month. And basically it's planned around going down to the fest in Gainesville and playing there. It's going to be a lot going on.
Absolutely.
All while trying to write an album.
Well, good luck. It sounds, this is the best kind of busy though. Like a lot of awesome stuff to do,
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I act as if it's overwhelming, and it is, but at the same time, if it wasn't happening, I'd be so depressed.
Yes.
And well, we went through that. There was a whole 2 years of that not happening, and I nearly lost my damn mind.
Exactly. I think about times off. That's what gets me out of depression, is thinking about times when I was addicted, when I was alone, when I had nothing going on, and I would just sit on the internet or watch the same movies over and over again, and I wasn't creating anything and I wasn't doing anything. And now I'm just constantly churning out different kinds of content and creating and writing music and all this stuff. And I'm so grateful every day that I get to do that.
Yeah, it's awesome, because I, even as somebody who deals with like depression and anxiety and stuff like that, it doesn't take it away, but it definitely makes it more manageable. You know what I mean? When you're not just sitting there doing nothing, when you have something to do, it absolutely makes it more manageable.
Exactly. And, filling up the time is great. And if you're filling it up with cool stuff you're creating, that's the best thing of all.
It's very rewarding.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And Nathan, I want to say thank you for sitting in the co-host chair with me. It's been a while since I've spoken to you, and I'm very happy to get to catch up with you.
Wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Just a couple of reminders. New Scene t-shirts are out there. Go pick one up at our Death Wish Inc. store. I've got the new gaming YouTube channel up. I'll be doing weekly uploads until I run out of material. So check that out. I'll be doing a couple more Twitch streams. The excitement never stops here at the New Scene. And we're back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So thanks everybody for listening. And until next time.